The story we are about to share with you today is one that sits heavy on the heart. It's a case that shocks you not only because of its sheer brutality, but because of the devastating betrayal that made it possible. This is the story of the Han family, a beloved California doctor and his family murdered. Think about that word for a moment, family. A husband, a wife, a beautiful little girl. A life built together with hope, with hard work, with love. For Dr. Henry Han, that life was a dream realized after decades of struggle and dedication. He was a healer. A man who had devoted his entire life to understanding the secrets of wellness, to easing the pain of others in his community. His hands were meant for healing. But on one night in March, those hands and the lives of his beloved wife Jenny and their vibrant 5-year-old daughter, Emily, were taken in the most violent way imaginable. And the most chilling part? The evidence suggests this wasn't a random act. It wasn't a stranger hiding in the shadows. This was the work of someone they knew. Someone they had let into their lives, someone they were trying to build a future with. A man they had reason to trust. Over the next 20 minutes, we will walk you through the incredible life of Dr. Henry Han, a man who came from a family of healers in China and built an empire of hope in California. We will detail the chilling discovery at the family home, a crime scene so methodical, it pointed to a cold and calculated mind. And we will reveal the shocking text message, sent by the killer just after the bodies were found, a message that reads like a confession, leading investigators directly to his doorstep. We will uncover the motive, and it is here, in this simple, ugly reason, that the story becomes truly enraging. It will make you question how well you can ever really, truly know the people around you. This is a story of a life of light, extinguished by breathtaking darkness. So please stick with us. Before we go any deeper into this nightmare, I want you to do something for me right now. Look down at the comments section and tell me where in the world you're watching from tonight. Are you in bed? Are you supposed to be working? Are you hiding under the covers with the lights off because true crime hits different after midnight? Let me know. And while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe, turn on the bell, because stories like Han's deserve to be remembered, and your support is the only way we keep telling them. Okay, deep breath. Because what happened inside that quiet house in Goleta, California, is going to break your heart into a million pieces, and then make you furious that monsters like this actually walk among us. To truly feel the weight of this tragedy, you must first understand the incredible life that was lived. You have to know who Dr. Henry Han was, not just as a victim but as a man. His story began a world away in China. He was born Weidong Han, but to those who knew him he was simply Henry. And from his very first breath, he was surrounded by healing. His grandfather was an herbalist. His mother, a gynecological oncologist, a fighter of cancer. His father, a dermatologist. Medicine, compassion, the desire to help others. This wasn't just a career path. It was his legacy. It was in his blood. And he embraced that legacy with a brilliant mind. He graduated with top honors from the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine and Western Medicine. Think about that, he didn't just master one form of medicine. He mastered two. He held both a Doctor of Oriental Medicine and a medical doctor degree. He was a scholar, a seeker of knowledge. Driven by that thirst for knowledge, he came to the United States on a prestigious Chinese government scholarship. He left everything familiar behind to pursue graduate studies in psychology. His mind was a tapestry, weaving together Eastern traditions and Western science. He was so brilliant, so captivating, that he became a featured lecturer at a university here in California. But his real dream was to heal one-on-one in his own community. In 1989, Henry entered private practice, and over the next 2 years he worked tirelessly to build his reputation. When his student visa expired, he marries an American woman just to stay in the country. It doesn't work out, they separate quietly, no drama. But Henry? He never stops working. He starts as an assistant at a tiny herb clinic in Santa Barbara. The owner, an older woman named Jean Yu, sees something in him. His talent was so obvious, his dedication so clear, that just 2 years later, in 1991, Jean Yu sold the clinic to him, and Henry turns it into something legendary. Santa Barbara Herb Clinic. He moved it to a prominent location on Upper State Street, right behind Chuck's Steakhouse. Patients start pouring in. People with stage 4 cancer that Western doctors had sent home to die. People with chronic pain that pills couldn't touch. They leave Henry's office walking taller, smiling, crying tears of gratitude. One woman swore he brought her husband back from the edge of death with nothing but tree bark and roots. Another patient drove 6 hours every month just to sit in his waiting room because Dr. Han's energy alone made her feel healed. Over 25 years he builds a patient list of more than 13,000 people. 13,000. He writes books, Ancient Herbs, Modern Medicine. He lectures around the world. His reputation wasn't just as a doctor. He was a trusted friend, a pillar of the Santa Barbara community. His passion was so deep that he purchased 7 acres of land, a sprawling property with a quarter-mile-long driveway, just to cultivate his own plants and herbs. He wanted to touch the entire process from the earth to the patient. That was the level of his care. But for all his professional success, his family was his true world. After the painful end of his first marriage, he found love again. He found Jenny. Who aged Jenny, you was a beautiful, kind-hearted woman. She had worked in several local restaurants, and later worked alongside Henry at the herb clinic. And then they welcomed their daughter, Emily. She was born in 2010, a bright, joyful little girl. Photos of her show a child full of light. She attended the Waldorf school, and then was a kindergarten student at Foothill Elementary. She was their everything. After the devastating back-to-back loss of his own parents in 2015, Henry's world narrowed to the people inside his home. Jenny and Emily were his heart, his future, his reason for everything. He was working on his 3rd book, a project focused on uniting Chinese and Western medicine. The future wasn't just bright, it was dazzling. He was a healer, a husband, a father, a man who had built a beautiful life from the ground up with his own 2 hands. A life of purpose and love and immense promise. So I have to ask you, as we look at this picture of a life dedicated to health, have any of you ever sought out alternative or holistic medicine? Maybe acupuncture or herbal remedies? Share your experiences in the comments below. I find the journey to wellness is something so many of us share. This family, this beautiful, thriving life, was the dream. And that is what makes what happened next so unspeakable. Because that dream was about to be shattered by a man who saw it, not as something to admire, but as something to destroy. The peace of that beautiful Goleta neighborhood was now gone, replaced by the grim silence of a major crime scene. And what police found inside the Hahn family home? It told a story of pure, calculated evil. This was not a messy, emotional crime. This was something far, far colder. The evidence suggested that Henry, Jenny, and little Emily were shot in their heads while they slept, in their own beds, in the deepest safety of their own home. They were likely unaware, lost in dreams when their lives were taken. But the horror didn't end there. The killer then had a job to do. He moved their bodies to the garage. He meticulously wrapped each one from head to toe in plastic sheeting. He sealed them with duct tape. He attempted to clean, to erase his traces using bleach. This was a systematic, step-by-step process. This was the work of someone who was thinking, who was covering his tracks. This was an execution followed by a cleanup. The question screaming in every detective's mind was, why? Who could do this to a healer, a mother, a child? And then, a name. It surfaced almost immediately, rising from Dr. Hahn's recent business dealings. The name was Pierre Hopsch. He was a 25-year-old man from Oceanside. He had presented himself to Dr. Hahn as a successful entrepreneur, a scientist, a partner who could help launch a new line of skincare products. He promised a bright future, a new business venture. But when detectives started pulling at the threads of Pierre Hopsch's story, the entire fabric of his life began to unravel. The truth was, he was not a successful businessman. He was not a scientist. He had no college degree. He was living in a San Diego apartment with his father. The successful entrepreneur was a complete and total fiction. And it gets worse. He had already been caught making suspicious charges on Dr. Hahn's accounts. Charges for things like escort services. He had been briefly kicked out of the business deal because of this betrayal. But Dr. Hahn, a man who believed in second chances, was considering letting him back in. But Jenny was not so sure. Just days before the murders, she confided in a friend. She expressed a heavy feeling, a deep and growing distrust of Pierre Hopsch. She was uneasy. Her instincts, that deep maternal and wifely intuition, were screaming that this man was not to be trusted. She felt something was wrong. Her instincts were screaming, but tragically, it was already too late. The investigation was now zeroing in. And then, detectives got the break that would change everything. They traced a purchase. They found that someone had bought rolls of plastic sheeting and duct tape from a Home Depot in Oceanside. The exact same type, the same brand was used to wrap the bodies of the Hahn family. And who made that purchase? The evidence pointed directly to Pierre Hopsch. But perhaps the most damning piece of evidence, the one that showed his state of mind, came from his own phone. After the bodies were discovered, after the news was spreading, Pierre Hobsch sent a text message to an acquaintance. A message that said everything. He didn't text, "Oh my God, how terrible." He didn't text, "I'm so sad." He wrote, and these are his exact words. "Yep. I'm screwed. They just found everything. My life's over." Not a word about the family. Not a word about the horror. It was all about him. His life. His problems. That text message, more than anything, sealed his fate in the eyes of investigators. It was a confession of guilt, not of murder, but of being caught. The net was closing in and the killer knew it. The investigation was now a firestorm, moving at a speed that Pierre Hobsch could never have anticipated. Just 48 hours after the bodies of the Hahn family were discovered, the hunt was over. On March 25, 2016, police located Hobsch. He wasn't in some hidden safe house. He was at a gas station east of Oceanside, going about his life as if nothing had happened. He was taken into custody without a fight. The game was up. But it was what they found inside his car that turned a strong suspicion into an absolute, airtight case. It was a damning treasure trove of evidence, a collection so brazen it defied belief. In his possession, police found a loaded 9mm handgun. They found a .22 caliber Ruger pistol, a weapon that would soon be confirmed by ballistics as the very gun that fired the bullets that killed Henry, Jenny, and Emily Hahn. They even found a homemade suppressor, a silencer, showing a chilling level of premeditation to quiet the sound of death. But perhaps the most callous, the most heartless items of all, were the personal effects of the family he had just destroyed. There in his car was Dr. Henry Hahn's own wallet. There were electronic devices belonging to the Hahn family. And most chilling of all, a screenshot, saved on his phone of Dr. Hahn's private bank information. His account numbers. His social security number. Everything you would need to steal a man's entire financial life. In that one sickening collection of items, the entire motive was laid bare for the world to see. This was not about revenge. This was not a heated argument that spiraled out of control. This was about money. Cold, hard financial gain. Pierre Hobsch was a man who had built his life on a foundation of lies. He had woven a complete web of deception to get close to the successful and trusting Dr. Hahn. He presented himself as a partner, a visionary. But in reality he was a fraud, living with his father, and he saw Henry Hahn not as a person but as a target. When his web of lies began to collapse, when Jenny's distrust was growing and his fraudulent charges were discovered, he faced a choice. He could walk away exposed as a liar. Or he could choose the most horrific option imaginable. He chose to annihilate the entire family. He decided that 3 innocent lives were a price worth paying to cover his tracks, to silence the people who knew his secrets, and to potentially steal from the fortune he so clearly coveted. He executed them in their sleep, then went through their home, gathering their belongings like trophies. And remember that text message? Yep. I'm screwed. They just found everything. My life's over. He wasn't mourning the family. He was panicking because his plan to profit from their deaths had just exploded in his face. I have to pause here and ask you, the viewers, a question that haunts me about this case. What goes through your mind when you hear the motive was so coldly, purely financial? That a man could end 3 beautiful lives just for the chance at some money? Does that calculated greed make this more shocking to you than a crime of passion, a moment of rage? Please share your thoughts and let's discuss this in the comments below. Your perspective is so important. The evidence was overwhelming. The motive was clear. The killer was in handcuffs. But for the Hahn family, and for a community left in mourning, the long, painful road to justice was only just beginning. In the interrogation room, Pierre Hobsch transforms into the victim. He cries. He claims a secret team of assassins killed the Hahns because of his revolutionary energy invention. He says the CIA is framing him. That Middle Eastern billionaires want him dead. That he found the bodies already wrapped and decided to protect the evidence by taking everything home. He talks about shadow people following him for years. About government black helicopters. About how he's actually the genius the world needs. Detectives just let him talk. They already have his fingerprints on the plastic that wrapped Emily. They have the Home Depot CCTV of him smiling while buying the murder kit. They have the text message. They have the key to the Hahn house on his key ring. At one point, a detective quietly slides Emily's kindergarten photo across the table, the one with the gap-toothed smile. Pierre looks at it and says, "I loved that little girl." The detective asks, "Then why did you shoot her 8 times?" Pierre looks away. No answer. Just silence. He never shows remorse. Not once. Not in 6 hours of talking. Not in the 5 years of trial. Not even when the judge read the verdict. So I'm going to ask you right now, look down in the comments and type the word monster, if you believe after everything you just heard, that Pierre Hobsch enjoyed every second of what he did to that family. Type it loud. Because some evil doesn't deserve a single shred of doubt. Justice is coming, but for Henry, Jenny, and especially for Emily, it will never be enough. October 2021. 5.5 years after Emily's bunny was laid beside her body. The trial finally begins in Santa Barbara Superior Court. But something is different this time. There are no 12 jurors in the box. The seats are empty. Pierre Hobsch, yes, the same man who thought he could talk his way out of anything, waived his right to a jury. He knew that if 12 ordinary people heard what he did to that little girl, if they saw the photos, if they listened to the evidence, they would have voted to convict him before lunch on the first day. So it's just one man deciding his fate, Judge Brian Hill. A bench trial. Cold, quiet, clinical. For 5 weeks the prosecution lays it all out. The Home Depot receipts. The fingerprints on the plastic. The text message, "My life's over." The 8 bullet wounds in a kindergartner. Witness after witness, detectives who still can't sleep, patients who wept on the stand just saying Henry's name. Pierre represents himself for part of it because of course he does. He rambles about conspiracies, secret patents, invisible enemies. He cross-examines detectives like he's in a movie. The judge just lets him talk, until even Pierre runs out of lies. November 24, 2021. Judge Hill looks straight at him and says the words the entire community has waited years to hear. Guilty. 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 3 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. Murder for financial gain, lying in wait, and multiple victims. April 15, 2022. Sentencing day. Pierre shaves his head, puts on a suit, and tries one last performance. He begs for mercy. Claims he's found God. Talks about childhood trauma. The prosecutor, Benjamin Leidenig, stands up and reads a letter from one of Henry's patients. A woman who says Henry saved her from cancer and then walked her daughter down the aisle when she had no one else. Then he shows the courtroom Emily's unicorn pajamas. Still stained. Judge Hill doesn't flinch. He sentences Pierre Hobsch to 3 consecutive terms of life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus another 75 years to life for the gun enhancements. For the rest of his natural life and then some, Pierre will never breathe free air again. Today, right now, as I'm recording this in November 2025, Pierre Hobsch, California prisoner number BZ8742, is locked up at Kern Valley State Prison in the middle of the desert. Maximum security. He spends 23 hours a day in a concrete box. And guess what? He's still filing appeals. Handwritten motions full of the same delusional nonsense. Every single one denied. The latest appeal was thrown out just months ago. It's over. Legally, finally, forever over. But there was one more piece of justice the criminal courts couldn't give. The Hahn family estate, what little was left after the murders, sued Pierre civilly for wrongful death. He had no money, of course, but they went after everything. Every future dollar he might ever earn from prison interviews, book deals, anything. They won. Default judgment. Pierre Hobsch died penniless the day that verdict came down. Anything he ever touches now belongs to the memory of Henry, Jenny, and Emily. Yet, even with the guilty verdicts, even with the cell door slamming forever, even with the appeals dying one by one, there is no peace. Emily never got to first grade. She never had her 6th birthday. Jenny never saw her daughter blow out those candles. Santa Barbara still has a quiet corner in the Lobero building where patients leave flowers for a doctor who isn't coming back. The 7-acre herb farm is overgrown now. The clinic is closed. And somewhere in an evidence locker, there's a small pink iPad with unicorn stickers that will never be turned on again. Justice locked the monster away. But it didn't bring them back. It never does. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for remembering Henry, Jenny, and especially little Emily. They deserve the world, and for 90 terrible minutes one night in March, evil took it from them. I'm going to leave you with Emily's kindergarten photo. Look at her. And then go hug your people a little tighter tonight. Rest in peace, sweet girl. The world hasn't forgotten you. We never will. Henry spent his entire life, 57 years, trying to save people. Strangers. People who walked into his clinic with no hope left. He gave them herbs and time and love, and somehow pulled them back from the edge. He saved thousands. But in the end, when the real monster came, he couldn't save the 2 people who mattered most. He never even got the chance to open his eyes. Jenny never got to watch her little girl grow up. Emily never got to ride a bike without training wheels, never got to lose another tooth, never got to have a sleepover or a first crush or a graduation day. They were stolen, wrapped in plastic, hidden in a garage like they never mattered. So I need to ask you something that's been eating at me since the first day I read their names. Do you think evil like this is born? Or do people choose, step by terrible step, to become monsters? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I read every single one, and I want to know what you think after hearing what Pierre Hobbs did to a sleeping child. If this story broke your heart the way it broke mine, if you're sitting there with tears in your eyes or rage in your chest, please hit that like button. Let's get this video to 100,000 likes. Not for me, but for Emily, for Jenny, for Henry. So their names stay alive. So no one ever forgets what happened on that quiet night in Goleta. And while you're down there, tell me where you're watching from tonight. Tell me who you're going to hug a little tighter when this video ends. Tell me you'll never take a single bedtime for granted again. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell if you haven't already, because next week I'm bringing you another case that will shake you exactly like this one did. A story the news tried to bury, but we're not letting it stay buried. Emily, Jenny, Henry, we're holding the light for you. Sleep soft, sweet girl. The world remembers. Thank you for staying until the very end. I'll see you in the next one.